all about that. And then he served in the Pacific and was in 17 different battles. I'm going to tell you some more about that later. So it's really an honor to have him here today. This is Mr. Sauber, and like I said, this is a group here. And before we get started, we're going to just show you a little, about 3-minute video clip of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And he's going to share a few of his memories of that day. If you have grandparents or great-grandparents, maybe you've asked them about that. It's a pretty significant day, and obviously today is Pearl Harbor Day. The attack started at 7:55 a.m. and as it's still going on right now, a couple hours later. Okay, it was about a 3-hour attack.
I have one son that was born today.
That's right. He has a son born on Pearl Harbor Day, which is interesting. All right.
Pearl Harbor is a Sunday.
I'm going to see you.
Go ahead.
And together with the family, we're all getting ready to go to church. And the disc jockey is going on with Hawaiian music. And suddenly, it sounded hysterical. For a moment, I thought this was an act. So I stepped out into the street, and sure enough, there are puffs and smoke coming out of the Pearl Harbor area.
Can you see?
And so I called my father out, and he said, look at that. And all of a sudden, 3 aircraft flew right overhead. They were Earl Grey with red dots. I knew what was happening. And I thought my world had just come to an end.
At 7:55 a.m. on Sunday, December 7, 1941, hundreds of Japanese warplanes, launched from aircraft carriers far out at sea, attacked the American Pacific Fleet, anchored at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The attack took a terrible toll. So terrible a toll that the War Department kept secret the exact details for years. Eight battleships, including the USS Arizona, 3 light cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 4 other naval vessels were either sunk or damaged. "164 American aircraft were also destroyed. Most hadn't even gotten off the ground. And 2,403 Americans were dead. Nothing like this had ever happened in the United States of America before.
Okay, just a little brief on that. Now we'll have Mr. Sauber come up. And we'll start here. I'd like to have him, make this very interactive. He's going to share some experiences, obviously, from what he remembers of Pearl Harbor that day and after it. He's going to talk about how he got into the Navy very shortly after that, and just kind of open it up. If you have any questions, we want to be able to throw those at him along the way. We have some other things we want to share with you as well. Go ahead.
That morning, I was born and raised in Acatenango. I was home eating bagels when that broke. And I was 17. I turned 18 January 1942, New Year's Day. In February of 42, I joined the Navy, and I'll tell you a little joke of why I joined the Navy. I was looking for a bed. If I joined the Army, I'd be marching everywhere, so I figured I might as well join the Navy, at least I'll have something to eat aboard ship, so that's what I did. And that's where, I don't know how many older of you ever remember it, but Inner Harbor used to be all docks, little docks. There used to be cruise ships that came there. One was called the Colchester. Used to take people from Baltimore to the beach. And that's how I went from here to Norfolk, Virginia to go to boot camp on a little overnight steamer ship. That's where it was. As far as this, my buddy was killed the first day. He was a gunner in a plane. They parachuted out. He was machine gunned and killed that day. My other buddy was killed over Germany in a B-29. All three of us had joined. They had joined a month or so ahead of me. There is a veterans post in Baltimore named after one of them, the Howard Goldstein post. I went to Norfolk. You go through boot camp, and I'm going to tell you all this so you'll know, because don't expect to join the Navy and tomorrow be a captain, because it ain't going to happen. You're going to have a long career. You go to boot camp for 6 weeks. Before you graduate, they ask you what you want to do. You want to go to sea right away. You want to go to a school. Whatever you want to do, you have your choice of doing. I decided I wanted to be a hospital corpsman. So I went to hospital corps school. You go there for 4 weeks, and if you graduate, fine. If you know a uniform, I have a picture, you'll see it. When you first go in, you only got one little stripe on your arm. You're an able-bodied seaman, that's all. What you do is KP duty, that's what you do. Once you graduate from there, you get 2 stripes. And if you go to school and become a regular seaman, first class, you get 3 stripes.
This is him, 18 years old.
It's on your, I was 18 years old in boot camp when I was
Is that what you're talking about right here?
Yeah, it's on your sleeve. The only thing I don't have on that uniform, which I have home, is a stripe for every 3 years that you serve. You see all these guys with all these gold stripes, the admirals and all that. Half of them never seen a gun, but they all got all them stripes because they're attached to that group, so they're entitled to wear them. But I guarantee you half of them ain't never seen a gun. You can bet your life on that. Anyway, I finished the hospital corps school, and I said, well, what should I do? They have, after you graduate, they send you to different places. I was sent to the Naval Air Station in Norfolk, Virginia. And I worked with a dentist, with a doctor. I decided I wanted to go a little further, so I took up dental work, and I became a dental hygienist. I worked with a dentist. I was at the Naval Air Station for a little while, and then I got orders to go to North Carolina. We only had 18 men down there. It was Cape Hatteras. I'm sure a lot of you know where Cape Hatteras is. What they had there was a little base with 18 people. We had some seamen, some sailors, a dentist, and me, and a doctor. What we did there were, and that was early 1942, what they had there was Cherry Point, North Carolina Marine Base. The pilots from Cherry Point used to practice carrier bounce landings day and night, so if they ever had to go to a carrier, they would know all about it. Our job was to rescue any of them that sunk in Cape Hatteras, because if you didn't find them within that hour, you were going to never find them. So I was there for a couple months. From there, I went to Williamsburg, Virginia. At that time, they had a new organization called the CBs, Construction Battalions. I was stationed at Camp Perry as a ship's company, and that was pretty good duty because what I did was I traveled. Every time the group finished boot camp, they would be sent to a port of embarkation to be sent to the Atlantic or the Pacific wherever they were going. So it was either Gulfport, Mississippi, Bellingham, Washington, someplace. So I'd get on a train with them as a corpsman, go with them. They would depart, and I would come back to Camp Perry. At about this time, they were laying the keel for the Kambera.
And that was from Sparrows Point, right?
Right.
And you still work there?
Yeah, I worked at Bethlehem Steel when I was 17 before I went in the Navy. I was a burner, acetylene burner. That was good money. I could have stayed there, I didn't have to do it. Anyway, from there, I was sent to Boston, where I picked up the USS Canberra. For those of you who don't know, do most of you know where Canberra is or what it is?
Probably not.
It's the capital of Australia,
Oh.
Canberra. It's the only ship in the history of the United States Navy named for a foreign country or a foreign capital. The only one. It's named for the capital of Australia. And the reason, I think he has a picture.
I got it right here. This is the one that went down, correct?
Right. Is that ship protected the USS Enterprise from a torpedo was sunk. While this was being built, they changed the name to Kambera to honor Australia. That's how it got its name.
So this is the ship that was sunk by protecting the Enterprise.
Right. That was in Savo Island, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that's where the Kambera came from and where the name came from.
And then this is your ship, right? This is the Canberra.
That is the Kambera.
That's the ship you were on, right?
The reason I brought this hat is that's the old Kambera. We used to have a catapult plane on the rear of on the stern of the ship. After it was retired after the war, it was sent to California. It was totally remodeled. It became, instead of CA-70, which stands for an attack cruiser, to CAG-2. It was the first guided missile cruiser in the fleet. It stopped the Russians from going to Cuba in the missiles of October. It has a great history. Unfortunately, I wasn't aboard it when it became a CAG. I'm still on the computer as a crew member. But it went through a lot of things. He'll go over that with you in a little while. I didn't know that it went on a world tour. I didn't know anything had ever happened to it until a Navy captain who I knew sent me all this information about what happened to the Kambera. I think there is a picture somewhere of it, given the ambassador.
Oh, you're talking about the, this one?
I'll
We can put
talk.
that, yeah, sure. We can put that one. This
There is a picture of the president giving the bell from the Kambera to the capital, to the ambassador of Australia. The picture you see up here,
I'll slide it down.
I want you to know what that is. That's Vietnam, World War II, and Korea. Those are the pictures of the unknown soldier, which is in Arlington. That's President Bush. He's picking the one that will go to Arlington. The other two are buried at sea. I think this is the one that he picked. So if you get to Arlington, you'll know. Now we can get to the Kambera. All right. We left and went back to the Pacific, the new one, the old ship. And I think Mike has a list
Of where you were?
of where we were.
Let me read through it if you want. There's quite a list, actually.
Yeah.
And he did this all within a year. He was at 17 different battles in the Pacific. Started with the Battle of Antietam over there. He went to Pearl Harbor and just went from there, correct?
Right.
And then you went out with the Yorktown Carrier Group to Palos.
That's Admiral Bull Halsey. That's the 3rd Fleet. Bull Halsey was the admiral that everybody reads about and everybody sees on television. If you ever watch the military channel, in fact, last night they had one on. They will show you all these battles. And Admiral Halsey, with Bull Halsey's the one that did all that.
And then he had a couple other islands. Then he had some amphibious landings he was involved with at Hollanday and I think it's Wakati.
Yeah.
Okay, then an air attack on truck. Then you guys shelled the Japanese base at Satawan. You had some raids at Marcus and Wake Islands in May of '44. And then in June in Mariana and Palau. And then you were involved in the Philippine Sea battle and Bonin Island. And then you were also involved in Okinawa, which is where your ship had an interesting experience, trying to prep for the landings at Leyte Gulf. So 17 different campaigns.
You have to remember, we had 8-inch triple guns. We had 55 40 millimeters on our ship, 5-inch guns on the fantail, and nobody ever talks about it. I don't know why. We had we had Marines aboard our ship, a detachment of Marines that used to run the 40 millimeter guns on the after party ship. I'll give you a little funny story. Before the ship was remodeled, we used to let the catapult plane go off, and then we would have to recover it. Well, it was called dog mats or something. I don't know. I don't even remember. Where they laid out a cable, and the plane used to drift on it, and then they would lift it. Well, one time the plane overturned, and the captain wanted to get rid of it. He offered somebody $100 who could ever shoot it and sink it. And we had an old farmer aboard ship from Tennessee, and he got the money. He had that old rifle out there just like you see coon hunting. And he's the one that saved that. That's a little story. I will now go back to where I was in Virginia before this ship pulled out. In 42 and late 42, for those who don't know it, we had more German submarines off North Carolina than we had Navy ships. We used to stand at Cape Hatteras and wave to them. And they were submarines, German submarines. I think my son remembers. I have a little ring home in my jewelry box. A little steel ring about that big. And we rescued some Norwegians that were sunk off the coast of North Carolina. And this guy's daughter had given him this little ring. I got the ring home. He gave it to me because he was wounded. And fortunately, I was smart enough to be able to sew his whip up for him and help him out. From there, I was assigned to the Kambera, and when she left, I was aboard her. All these battles that you hear about, sometimes we were 5 miles away, but our guns were able to do whatever they wanted to do. We didn't have, thank you, we didn't have no, you'll be the only man ever gave me a glass of water. I don't never drink water. I don't drink beer, don't get me wrong. But I don't drink, I drink coffee. But anyway, a lot of these battles, we never seen the Japs. We were 5 miles away. We didn't have to worry. But anyway, during the Battle of Savo Islands, Admiral Halsey had what he called a bait fleet. He had carriers, he had destroyers, he had a couple battleships. He wanted to draw the Japs. He wanted the Japs to attack. Well, they did eventually, but not right away. We were sent on a scouting trip into the Savo Islands, which are right off the coast of Formosa. Formosa is the little country that China got rid of. That's our ally. In fact, yesterday's news, it was all about the president-elect calling the president of Formosa. Now China's all PO'd because he's talking to Formosa. Well, that's our ally. That's where China, the Chinaman Chiang Kai-shek used to be.
Now, I think Formosa today is called Taiwan.
Yes.
I believe that's correct, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, we were off the coast of Formosa, and we were hit by an aerial torpedo. We went from starboard to the port side by an aerial bomb, and we were hit below the waterline, and all 24 men in the engine room were killed. That's the only thing we had. I was lucky. My battle station was up on the bridge where the captain is, and the captain ain't gonna take no chances. I was stationed on the bridge. I did help remove some of the bodies. We were dead in the water. We had no engine. We were turning around and around and around and around. That night, the Japs attacked. And when I say they attacked, they attacked. There was a ship, a cruiser by the name of Helena, the USS Helena. We were pulled out of the battle line that night, taken by tugboat to the Marianas Islands. And in the Marianas Islands, they had these huge dry docks. And that's where we were. But unfortunately, the Helena was torpedoed 3 times, and all 1,600 men were lost. Not one single survivor from the Helena. So we were damn lucky that we were pulled out of there.
And that picture, that image there, we had it blown up is of the attack on his ship.
Right. There's a picture. Don't ask me how we got it. I don't know who took it. But if you look at it, on the left-hand side of the picture, there's the Jap plane that got us. It's going down. I don't know if you need to come up close and look at it. You're welcome to it, or whatever. But that ship never got away. It's right there going down into the sea. Can you see it?
Yeah.
That's factual. I don't know who took this picture. And I don't know how I got a hold of it, but a year and a half ago, or a little over a year and a half ago, 4 of us were invited to Howard Community College. They did a background check on everything. They found me all this stuff and sent it to me. So you can see, those are zigzag lines on the ships. If you ever see a ship at sea with zigzag, it's very difficult to tell how big it is or which way it's going. That's why we had zigzag lines. But that is the Jap plane that got us, and we weren't 100 miles from Japan when that happened. So that's how we got hit. From there, we went to the Marianas Islands. We were repaired partially. They put some hatches aboard the ship on the starboard side. And from there, we had no water because we had no engines. All we had was beer. And for 2 months we took showers with beer. We had nothing else. We had nothing. It took us 2 months by tugboat to go back to Boston, Massachusetts, where we were refitted. And from there, back, I don't know whether we have one after that.
Which one? The San Francisco?
When we went back to San Diego, when we left there, Boston,
Right.
we went back to San Diego, but unfortunately, I had to go back. Last month you had a big celebration downtown. It was called the Navy Day. We were here. 1945, we came to Baltimore for Navy Day. We were in downtown on 4th Avenue. And that's when I came home, but I wasn't let go. I had to stay aboard ship, went back through the Panama Canal, went to San Diego, and if you had enough points to be discharged, you could take, they would send you back to where you came from. Christmas, day before, a couple days before Christmas, 1945, I left San Diego, came to Baltimore, went to Kambera up by Acatenango Dam, where they had built a Navy base called Bainbridge. And I was discharged from Bainbridge and was home. I was lucky. I never got hurt. I had a wonderful experience. And anybody who wants to have a good experience or growth, join the Navy. It'll never hurt you.
You actually got out of Navy on Christmas Day.
I was
right?
Christmas Day, 1945. It's Christmas morning. I was discharged, carried my sea bag. It was raining, and I came home to Baltimore from there. The question board is open.
Somebody asked,
You got any particular one you want to know, I'll try to help you.
Somebody asked, what do we got?
And these pictures are up here for you to look at. In fact, I think Mike's got them here. I'll show you something interesting.
Yeah, I was going to pass that around.
Yeah,
Go ahead and show it to me.
I'll show you this. We had ration cards aboard ship for cigarettes. They were 50 cents a carton. We also had to have a pass to go to the movies. They would give you passes. These are ration cards. Incidentally, with all the medical that I did, if you look and you'll see it, I took first aid as a beginner, I took first aid as a senior, and I'm a Red Cross instructor in first aid today. I have my cards. I can teach anybody anything in first aid. And there's the cards. There's my, up here, if you were a petty officer, you could go to the canteens downtown, wherever town you were in. Where you had dancing, music, girls, no booze, but coffee and soda. There's another card here, and you can look at them cards. He gonna pass it around. And you got one pack of cigarettes every 2 days.
Well, they don't
And the
want
only
smoke.
kind you could smoke were Philip Morris.
Is that right?
That's the only thing everybody. How many of you remember that little guy on television called for Philip Morris?
They
He
don't
used
see
to
that
be a
anymore.
little guy about that big. But that's what we had to go through. And I gave Mike the wrong figure. It wasn't $50 a month when I went in. It was $21.
21. Yeah, my uncle served in the Pacific, and he was in the Seabees for 3 years. About the
And the
same time.
Seabees, I'll tell you a funny story about the Seabees. You go in today, if you were an electrician, you got a whole bunch of stripes. You didn't have to do nothing. All you had to do was be a mechanic, and they'd give you all the stripes you wanted. I was lucky. I got as high as a second class petty officer. There's no showing there, but I have pictures home.
Uh-huh.
What else we got, Mike?
Well, I think that's pretty good on that. What about some questions? Somebody's got, who has got a question for you? Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, you can stand up?
Why were they just handing out candy cigarettes?
Why were they handing out what?
Cigarettes.
Of what?
Packs of cigarettes.
Oh, why were they doing it? Why did they hand out packs of cigarettes?
Because of smoke.
This is a different
Now, I'll
generation.
say this, you did have regulations about smoking. If the ship was doing something that shouldn't be done, the smoking lamp was out. You gotta wait for them to announce the smoking lamp is lit. Because they could be doing something with the guns on, with the cannon, with the big guns, or repairing, putting ammunition in the turrets. So there was a regulation. It was either the smoking lamp was lit or the smoking lamp was out. But you could buy a cigarette. And the only reason I smoked a cigarette, and I'll tell you why, I used to smoke a pipe, but I didn't have nowhere to put it. With Navy uniform, you don't have none, so I could carry my cigarettes in my socks. So that's how I started smoking cigarettes.
but we don't recommend that.
You don't want to do that because I'm suffering from it now. I smoked since I was 17, and right now I'm under a doctor's care. And for those that are interested, I'm 3 weeks away from being 93. New Year's Day.
We got some other questions. We gotta have something here. Come on. What do we got? Everybody raise a hand.
When
Yes.
you were out at sea in the Pacific, was it?
I didn't hear him.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
When you were out at sea in the Pacific, was it dangerous? Like, were you stressed about an attack or anything, or
Was it
just?
He was saying when you were out to sea at the Pacific, were you really stressed about attacks and things like that? How did you feel?
Let me put it this way, you really didn't have time for that. Being a dental technician, there was always somebody on the ship that wanted their damn teeth cleaned. But it was good, I made a lot of money. I shouldn't charge, but I'd say, well, you're going to base soon. I'll clean your teeth, it's only $5. So I made money. The dentists, there was only big ships like cruisers or battleships had dentists. Little ships didn't have none of that. The only thing I was responsible for was making sure that the dental office was clean. So it wasn't no. What are you going to do? You're in the middle of the Pacific. Where are you going to go? If the guy says, look, we're going to battle, you can't say, oh, I ain't going. I mean, it was a mess. I'll tell you a little story about this, one of them. You know the one that the flag is raised over the Marines? When they raised the flag at Iwo Jima? Well, one of my buddies who's still alive, he got shot there in his side, and he walks with a hop. People don't know this. We lost 2,800 men there, and the Japs lost over 8,000. At Tarawa in the Pacific, we lost 3,000 men. They lost 9,000 men. Y'all don't realize there were 16 million people in our Army and Navy. We lost thousands and thousands and thousands of men. If you get a chance, go to Arlington Cemetery. You'll see 30,000 graves. People think it was 200 people. We're talking about thousands of people killed. And what was killed? Half of them were 17, 18, 19 years old. They were young kids. We were young kids. We didn't know nothing. All we knew is if you don't go, you're going to get drafted. That's all. But that's what it was. It was no picnic. I mean, we used to, after a battle, we'd say, what happened? Well, we lost about 1,300, or we lost a couple thousand. People have no idea. Like maybe you guys are learning it now. We lost thousands and thousands of 18 and 19-year-old guys. I'll give you another little funny thing. This is a side thing, which my son knows. I was married in 1944 in Norfolk, which is 1942 in Norfolk, Virginia. And my wife was a whack at the Pentagon. My first wife. She used to take messages from Europe. She was a code operator. So that's a little side thing. Right now, I'm married 52 years. So all my kids are grown. But any kid that wants to go into service, I highly recommend it. Yeah, I see a hand up.
Have you ever gotten shot?
Have you ever gotten shot?
Oh. Have I ever got shot? No, I didn't get shot, but I got the hell beat out of me one time in Norfolk. I was arguing with. And the funny thing is, when we came to Boston, we used to go ashore I meet guys I never knew was aboard the ship. We had 1,600 then. I'd say, what ship are you from? I'm from Kambera. Well, I ain't never seen you. So, you know, you never knew who you were talking to, but it helped it out of me once time.
Well, that's about 300 more people than this entire school has, the students.
Yeah.
We got like 1,300.
You gotta remember, a battleship will have 3,000, a carrier got 5, 6, 7,000 men aboard. It's a whole city. The Kambera had a laundry room. They had great food. You could eat all you wanted. There was never any question. If you didn't have no money, you never went hungry. So it didn't matter.
What'd you do with your $21 a month?
Gamble. Wasn't nothing else to do. Buy a couple packs of cigarettes and then the gambling would start. So if you lost it, you had 2 weeks to wait.
You didn't hear him say that.
So, you know, then when you got out of boot camp, you went to $50 a month. The first strike got you $66 a month. Your second strike got you 84 or 94, I don't remember. So,
A month.
yeah. And I'll tell you something, you don't get promoted as much as everybody thinks. You gotta work for it. You gotta work for it. It's like a police department. These guys that become sergeants and captains and lieutenants, they take tests. I had to take a test, a first aid test, and answer questions. Now, I was lucky. I had a dentist from Chicago that I worked with who became very close to me. I was going to move out there when I got out. He's the one that used to get me promoted. So I went as far as second class petty officer. Now, when we came to Baltimore in 1945, I was offered a promotion to go to first class if I shipped over. But no, I had a wife and my mother was down at Fort Avenue the day we got here, and I said, no, I got enough. 3.5 years is enough. I'm going home. So that's the way to live. You got your hand up, I'm waiting.
Yeah, what other questions we got?
What is one thing that you wish you knew before you went to war?
I'm sorry, what was it again?
What is one thing you wish you knew before you went out to war?
What is one thing you wish you knew before you went off to war?
One thing I wish I knew. I wish I knew I wouldn't have had to see so many people killed. It ain't funny. We used to get guys that were wounded aboard ship. And I will tell you this. I had one buddy that joined incidentally, the way we got into the Navy, anybody knows Washington, D.C., where the Navy Yard is? Anybody know where it is? Well, him and I went over there before we enlisted. Lenny Wilson and I went there and took a test before we enlisted just to see what was what. He passed, I failed, so I joined. He went into the Army, and Lenny was at Anzio Beach in Italy when they landed and was wounded. He came back to Norfolk. I was still in Norfolk, and I was the first person to go see him at the hospital. He was shot in the upper arm. So that's a little side piece. And it ain't funny when you work in a hospital to see what's going on in that hospital from the guys. That's my biggest regret, is seeing the guys with one arm or one leg or no arms. And that's the biggest thing I don't like, is seeing all that crap.
What else? Yes.
So, what was your experience whenever you came back from combat? Like, how did the Department of Veterans Affairs treat you and stuff like that?
He wants to know afterwards, okay, because you were involved in all these different campaigns. What was it like when you came back from like the Department of Veteran Affairs, how you were treated and so forth?
I'll tell you something. I'm going to tell you this, but I want you all to take it in the right frame of mind. A year and a half ago, Howard Community College had me, another fellow, another guy, and another guy up on the stage. There's a newspaper article all about it. Years ago in the Navy, the only thing that an African American could do was be a servant with the officers. They weren't what they are today. There was no such thing, unfortunately. You're talking about back in the 40s. One of these four guys was a black guy that landed at Normandy. He came up on the stage with me and the other two guys. He was wearing two Purple Hearts. Somebody in the audience asked him, how was it when you came back to Baltimore? He said, not a damn thing had changed. I was still a black guy. So that you could remember. He was wearing two Purple Hearts. Nothing changed. So that tells you how it was.
Yeah.
People didn't care like they do today. Right now, I'm lucky. Everything, and I wasn't wounded, but everything I can get from the VA. I don't pay for no medicine. I don't pay for no doctors. I don't pay for nothing. And I'm very lucky. The state of Maryland pays everything for me. I have cards in my pocket. I get medicine right now that costs me $13,000 every time I get it. The state of Maryland pays for it. I don't pay for nothing. I think it's getting better. I know some vets that complain about the VA. I know there's more they could do. But that's the way it is. It is what it is. I know young guys today that go in. I know some girls, some young ladies that have joined the service. They got a wonderful, wonderful life. If it was up to me, every person in this room reaches 18 would put 2 years in the service. And
Okay. Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, can you a little bit out? The best and the worst thing about being in the Navy.
the best thing is the friendships you make, the people you meet. The worst thing about being in the Navy is you're getting up at 6, you're going to bed at 8. You can't go today, you can't go tomorrow. You did something wrong, you don't go to the movies tonight. Everything is told, you're told what to do. Which is fine, I can understand discipline. But like I just said, after 2 years in the service, I wouldn't see 6 kids hanging on a corner. They learn what everything is all about. It would never hurt anybody, I believe in that. But if I had to do it today, I'd do the exact same thing. I'd go through the same thing and I enjoy the same thing. I met a lot of people from the United States, from all over the country. I'm a member of the USS Canberra thing. Every year we have a meeting on how many are left. I didn't go 2 years ago because they went to Australia and I couldn't afford it. Last year they were in Virginia. And every year we have a get-together. And we're down to about 200 guys from maybe 1,500. From what I understand, we lose. You remember how much I said, Mike? How many we lose a day? 500 or 600 World War II veterans die every
Just
day.
about 500. My sister did
Yeah,
some research,
500
about 500
a
a day. World War II.
So in a
veterans
few
passed away.
years, there won't be nobody left from World War II. We lose about 500 a day. So every time I get a chance to talk, if I meet some, I live over in Waverly, over by Waverly Woods. I meet a couple of World War II vets, we sit and talk at McDonald's. We ain't got nothing else to do. I can't play golf no more. I don't drive no more. I have my son that drives me everywhere. But I enjoyed it, and I recommend it to any kid that wants to get ahead. Join up the Army, the Marines, the Navy. It ain't gonna hurt you. I have a son. What did Maury do in the Philippines? Oh, I have one son was a helicopter mechanic in the Philippines, and the one that was born on Pearl Harbor was a radio operator in the Navy when they were battling off of Lebanon. So I had that, and then I have my youngest son, who joined when he was 18, went to San Diego, was there for 4 weeks, and told the chaplain, "I want to go home." So he was discharged and came home. But other than that, it's a good life. My brother was aboard the USS Savannah. He lived in Miami. He became a deep sea diver in the Navy. He lived in the fancy hotels in Miami. So I didn't get a chance to do that.
During the war, he did it.
During the war, he joined it. And he joined 8 months behind me. So he was a little less than a year younger than me.
Now this map, real quick, up here, just to show you,
Yeah, that
is
map will give you an
it
idea.
just gives you some ideas, right?
This is what changed the war. If it wasn't for that battle, we'd still be Japanese.
Battle Midway. You'll learn about this in your class, I'm sure. It's a very big battle, yes.
We sunk 3 or 4 of their carriers, their battleships, and all of that came from full Halsey, moving everything, and going after the Japs.
And these are some of the places.
If we would have invaded Japan, and this is a fact, we lost 1 million men. That's what they estimated. It would have taken us a year, and we'd have lost over 1 million men. So that's why we dropped the bomb. In fact, I was in Boston when the bomb dropped. Questions?
Got something else? Yes, sir.
What were you doing when the bombs dropped?
What was that?
What were you doing with the bomb?
What were you doing the day that the bomb dropped on Hiroshima? How surprised were you
Yeah.
about that?
There's a building in Boston called the Fargo Barracks. It's right in downtown Boston. We were at the Boston Navy Yard. We went into town that afternoon when the bomb dropped. And the guys in the Fargo building were throwing beds out the 3rd and 4th floor because we knew the war was going to be over. So we stayed in Boston until Navy Day, and we came to Baltimore, and from Baltimore I had to go back through the Panama Canal and go to San Diego, and then they let me go, and I took a train back to Baltimore.
So you went from
That was a 6-day trip, and it was the coldest I've ever been in my life. I think it was there's a train called RFP, Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac, an old train that we took from San Pedro, California, all the way back to Boston. I mean to Baltimore.
Other questions? Oh, somebody.
I'm looking.
Yes.
You said you either smoke or gamble with your free time. Was there anything else you did with it?
He said you either smoked or gambled on your free time. Is there anything else you guys could do on the ship?
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, if the doctor made a bunch of appointments, I was stuck all day. If there wasn't nothing to do, I would help out in sick day. But if you look at the guns aboard ship,
Here, I'll put it up for you. Just right
Yeah.
there it is. It's up there now.
I slept. Sick day was 3 decks below these 8 inchers. So every damn time we fired them, we'd know about it. We wore earplugs when we went to battle because they're so loud. The worst guns aboard a ship are all along the starboard and port side, which are the 5-inch guns. They make more noise than the big 12 inches on battleships. I guess it's because they got a short barrel and they make a sudden sound. But the worst part about being a ship are the guns, the noise. The cafeteria, the sick bay is usually 3 to 4 decks below the main deck. It's for safety reasons. That, I'll give you an answer if you ask me. If we didn't like what they had in the menu in the dining room, we were a bunch of SBs. We used to call the kitchen and tell them we wanted fried chicken. And if they'd say no, we'd say, well, you got inspection at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And we'd have all the food we wanted, because they didn't want that every morning. So we'd use our medicine, our medical things, to get what we wanted from the cafeteria, from the lunchroom. We had a laundry, we had a dry cleaning. They cleaned our uniforms, they did everything we needed. Doctors, dentists, anything aboard ship you want, they got. In fact, the new ships today got more than they ever had. They probably got Xboxes on them, I don't know. But there was anything you wanted aboard a ship, you could get. Anything, except a woman. You couldn't find no girls then. We didn't have them. Now on the bases they had the waves, but they didn't go aboard ships then. Now they do everything.
Another question?
Questions?
Right? Everybody? Yes, go ahead. Was your ship ever attacked by a U-boat? That would be an interesting question.
The one that hit us was a Jap plane. Whether we ever were attacked by a U-boat, we wouldn't know. They would never tell us. They wouldn't say, hey, we had a U-boat. I've seen a lot of German U-boats. I can remember we used to wave to them off the coast of North Carolina. In fact, if I remember, they found one up in New York Harbor one time. They had there was an old cruise ship called Queen Elizabeth. I heard this story. And I understand there was a German submarine in New York's harbor one time. They got away, but people don't know how many submarines were off the coast of the United States. You have no idea. We probably lost 200-300 ships during the war from submarines. They were sitting ducks. All these ships going to the Atlantic to help Russia and England, they were always seeking them left and right. It wasn't nothing to do. I don't know how many members were.
What was it like?
Hundreds.
What was the feeling like in the country, obviously, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, right before you signed up?
The lines at the recruiting stations were unbelievable the next day. After Roosevelt talked in Congress and declared war, the recruiting stations became packed and jammed. And most of them were young kids. I mean, they had plenty of old timers, but you're talking about 16 million people in the service. That was no joke. I can remember everybody I knew, where are you going? I'm going in the Navy, or I'm going to the Marines. I remember one thing, the Marines were packed in jail. Everybody wanted to get in the Marines. Now, I did try to get into the Marines while I was in the Navy. As most of you know, the Marines are considered part of the Navy. I wanted to transfer from the Navy to the Fleet Marines. They didn't have their own medical corps. We were their medical corps. So had I been able to transfer, I would have worn Navy Marine uniforms and been with the Marine outfits, landing at all these places, rather than being aboard ship and saying, I'm nice and safe. But I can remember the day we were torpedoed when that bomb hit. We didn't even know where the hell they came from. That picture show you that.
Yep.
I didn't know about some other things about Kambera. I think Mike looked at them. I didn't read them. I didn't know it went on a round the world tour. I didn't know that it was honored by other countries. I didn't know any of that because I was no longer aboard. I didn't follow it up.
Yeah, and there's one other thing too I can show them.
Yeah, it was written somewhere, Mike.
These are just, I took these off and made copies.
Those are some of the medals I got.
Some of the medals that he's got.
I haven't got them because I'm no hero. I got. This is the ship before it was remodeled. So the hat's laying there if you want to look at it. That one over there, there's a lot of things that I got, little trophies. Somebody asked me about after the war. I don't know whether it matters or not, but I'll give you a little tip. When I came home, I played a lot of ball in my life. I was an umpire for 40 years, over 40 years. I umpired in Howard County. I umpired in Prince George's County. I played in 3 Senior World Series. I got 2 World Series rings. I'm playing softball. I got pictures home. I didn't bring any of them. And a couple of years ago, how long is it, Mike? 3-4 years? I ran in the Senior Olympics here at 80. I was 87, 88 years old.
Ran?
I ran in 100 meters and I won a gold medal.
Don't tell me your time because I don't want to know.
I remember the time, but I did. I just wanted to do it to see if I could do it. I've got World Series rings to leave with kids. I got a lot of junk. I did Division II baseball. I'm a Maryland basketball official. I didn't wear my jacket because I wore this, but I used to get, when I started umpiring, we got $1 a game. When I finished doing basketball, I got $86 a game. So I've done that my whole life. I've been in sports. Greatest thing in the world, guys. Be in sports. Can't be better. The only thing I did was I never refereed or coached any of my boys. I didn't do that. I've coached football, I've coached baseball, I've coached softball, and as I tell you, I've played in the Senior Olympics. I've been in Michigan, I've been all over playing ball. And that's the story. Yeah, that's it. I'm not a hero, I'm just lucky.
Well, your generation's amazing.
Any more questions?
Anybody?
I
Yes.
see one back there.
Go ahead.
Do you have any siblings that joined the Navy?
Any siblings that joined the Navy with you?
Do I have any?
Did you have any siblings that joined the Navy? Yeah, brothers.
No. Yeah, my brother was aboard the USS Savannah. And he lived in Florida, became a deep sea diver, and lived in all them fancy Miami hotels. Yeah, he didn't go. My other son, he was in battles off the coast of Lebanon, but that's not long ago when they were fighting. What is it, 5-10 years ago? Yeah. I've been very, very lucky that I came home, my brother came home, my sons came home. My oldest son was in the Philippines. So we've been very, very lucky. I know a lot of people that never came home.
That's right. Anybody else have a question?
Anybody else? I hope I taught you something.
Yeah, go ahead. Another question. Did your mother or father ever serve or anything?
My father came from Russia when he was long before I was born. And I understand he became a citizen. This is what I was told, I don't know. That he went in World War I, and in the Army, and that's how I became a citizen in this country, fighting for the Army. That's what I was told. I wasn't around.
Yep.
I had one other uncle who was in the Coast Guard.
We have something else we'd like to do real quick before everybody goes. Anybody have any other questions? Nick, would you like to come up? We have a young man here, Nick Lee, who is 17 soon. And Nick, you want to tell him what you're going to be doing and what you have?
I'm going to be enlisting in the Air Force in January. And this is from Mr. Martin.
Well, it's from all of
Yeah,
them.
just wanted to say thank you for your service, and it's an honor to meet you.
This hat has been given to me by the wounded vets. So they're here, you can look at them. And if you look at this real close, you'll see the old ship used to have an airplane on the fantail. Now it's got guided missiles there. That's when they remodeled it. It went from CA-70 to CG-2. If you pull up your computers, if you got a computer, I'll tell you something. Put in there USS on Google. USS CA-70, and you'll see the whole history of the Kambera. It'll come up on the computer. You'll see my name there and who the crew members are. It'll tell you who's still living, where they live. It'll tell you when the next meeting of the Kambera crew will meet, where it's going to be. It'll tell you a lot. So if you're interested in that, pull it up on Google and you'll see everything. I appreciate being here.
We appreciate you being here. And, well, you guys are studying World War II, and now you're looking at the action in the Pacific or whatever it is, and you see the different places. I mean, he was virtually in all of these different places in the Pacific.
That's the worst battle we ever had.
Terrible.
I think we lost more people there than any place we've ever fought.
The other thing is when you study a little bit further and you go into the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, remember that his ship was right there on the line, keeping the Russian ships from going into Cuba with the missiles. And it was a very intense thing, and you'll probably be learning about that as well. So he's been involved in a lot of things. He wasn't on that ship, but his ship was there, the ship that was served in World War II. So the last thing I'd like to do before we leave, if it's okay, it's going to be interesting to do this. I'd like you guys all to come up front and stand behind. We want to take a little group picture. All right, so you guys mind doing that? Would you mind coming out here? You guys have to go behind him now, because there's a lot of you. Come on out here. Stand up here and stand here. You guys come on up.